Hey guys, welcome to U-Space Podcast. I'm Taylor.
I'm Danica.
And today we're going to talk about Vampire Diaries and the originals. So what we like about it, I'm not going to go into every single season because it's 8 seasons in the Vampire Diaries and we're going to be here for like 3 hours if we talk about it. So I'm just going to talk about some of the good moments in the Vampire Diaries and the originals, and we're going to talk about some of the actors, or the main actors in the Vampire Diaries and the originals again. So
well, firstly, just in case, spoiler alert.
Oh yeah.
First and foremost, if you haven't seen it, it's been a few years now, but
the grace period's finished.
Yeah, but again, if you haven't seen it, maybe check this out after you binge it. But if you choose not to, that's cool. But do highly recommend that you watch this one.
Okay. So, like, the Vampire Diaries is more like of a love story at the start. So you've got, like, Stefan...
Damon and Elena.
Yeah, so Stefan, Damon doesn't come in until episode 3.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. But Stefan finds Elena attractive. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's like
there's
a big twist in the middle of the season.
Yes, Stefan and Elena meet, and it's kind of like it's not obviously not like love at first sight, but the look on their faces, it's kind of like what they're going for.
Yeah. And so you've got them two, and you've got Elena goes to school.
Yep.
At start, so
in high school, I think they're in like year 10. They're meant to be.
Yeah. So you've got like. Her friends group is Caroline,
Bonnie and Matt.
And then you've got like Elena's brother, which is Jeremy, which we'll get into a bit later.
And then you got another character, Tyler, who's in the background. He kind of becomes a friend later on.
Yeah, so they're like the main group at the start of the first, let's just say,
2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah, 2 or 3 seasons until a few others come into it. So basically,
we'll break down the different kind of characters. So you got Damon and Stefan. They are brothers. They are brothers, and they are both vampires.
Yes.
Helena is just basic human.
Yep.
Caroline starts off basic human.
Mm-hmm.
Bonnie, she learns that she comes from a long line of very powerful witches.
Yes. They are
the Bennett witches.
Yeah, the Bennett. Yeah.
Yep. So her name's Bonnie Bennett, so that's where that comes from.
Yeah.
Matt, he's the one character who stayed human throughout the entire series and actually didn't die.
Yes, and I am very surprised.
Yeah, so basically he was just that one normal character that they kept around, and
but he knew about some.
Yeah,
stuff
he was obviously there for relevant reasons, but everyone was kind of like every once in a while, it's like, dude, you're still here, you're still alive. Like,
yeah, I got really annoyed with him right at the end. I'm just like, oh, he just needs to go.
Yeah. Elena's brother, Jeremy, you realise that their step or half brother and sister, I can't really remember.
Oh,
I think they were cousins.
Who?
Elena and Jeremy. They're actually cousins because Jeremy's mum and dad, they weren't actually Elena's parents. So...
What?
Yeah, do you not remember this?
Sorry.
So it was either... I'm pretty sure it was Elena's dad was...
Oh, yes, I do remember this. Yeah.
So in the show, obviously, parents have died in a car crash, but who Elena thought was her dad... was not her dad. So basically, turned out that her uncle, so the dad's brother, was actually her biological dad, and the mum was not in the picture.
Yeah. Who else have we got? So Tyler was come into it a little bit later.
He was the first werewolf that we got to see.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But going back, so you got like the first couple of seasons, which just goes around like your basic love story.
And, love triangle.
Yeah, so you've got like Stefan, Elena,
and Damon.
And it just bounces around for a good... Oh, it bounces around for the whole...
Yeah, so basically Elena starts off with Stefan, and then over time...
Goes to Damon.
Yeah.
And then it comes back to Stefan, but goes back to Damon. And it's really like the biggest love triangle in your life. Like,
yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. Elena also is what's known as a doppelganger in the show. So over the course of who knows how many years, there are people who are an exact identical to her. So they look the same, just everything.
Yeah.
So, which is also really cool how she switches between each character. That
it was good.
Like, yeah.
So when Damon and Stefan were back in like the 1950s or whatever it was, there was another girl named Catherine, which looked exactly like Elena. So that's why they try to.
That's kind of like why they gravitated towards Elena in the first place.
Yeah. So that's why that's how the story really happened, is because Stefan was in love with Catherine.
And so was Damon.
Yeah.
But then you realise later on that Catherine was a vampire and she kind of forced them in the beginning and things like... It was just a very kind of crazy thing. So one thing we didn't touch on with the vampires, obviously vampires are portrayed in different ways in different things. So in this, they have special rings that have been spelled so they can be out in the sunlight.
Moon rings.
Yep, moon rings are for werewolves, so they can turn at any time and not just in a full moon.
Yep.
Vampires, so they have the power of compulsion. So if you don't take this specific herb or whatever, they can technically mind control you.
Yeah.
What else can they do? Naturally, obviously, they're very strong.
Fast.
They're fast. In this one, the only way you can kill them is obviously by like wooden stake or rip their heart out or decapitation.
Yeah, and we won't get into detail.
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay, so once so we talked about like up to season 3-ish. So we're going to like roughly season 4. So everyone's still around, and Love Triangle's still going.
Yeah.
But
then, now Caroline is a vampire.
Yes.
As well. Elena's not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Spoiler alert again. But this is when the original vampires come into it, and where the spin-off of the show originals
starts
kind of
to happen a bit more.
So you get the family of I believe 7 or 6.
But you only see in the Vampire Diaries, you only see Niklaus,
Cole, Elijah, Rebecca, and Finn.
Yeah, so you only see like the main bunch of them.
So yeah, they're the first ever vampires in the world.
Yep.
And yeah, so you kind of meet them, and another kind of twist on that is with Klaus, the main kind of, I guess, villain for that time. He's what's known as a hybrid, so he is born a werewolf and later on turned into a vampire, so he's part wolf and vampire.
Yep. Also, you see a little bit of Hayley from the originals as well.
Also linked very much to the spin-off.
Yes, so the spin-off is...
So spin-off the originals is based on Klaus and Hayley. Yep. Hayley becomes pregnant, and basically they get pulled away from Mystic Falls, which is where the show's based in. That's the town. And they get pulled away because Klaus thinks there are a bunch of people conspiring against him to kill his baby, basically, in a nutshell. Yeah, so that's season 4 is when the originals come into it a bit more.
Yeah.
So basically it's like it's the original vampires versus Damon, Stefan, Elena, Caroline, Bonnie, like pretty much everyone. It's just a war between them and the original vampires.
Yeah.
Which, with the originals, they also have their father, who is also one of the original vampires, and he...
Michael, is
Yep, so Michael, and with how I mentioned that Klaus is a hybrid, that also showed that Michael was not Klaus's father,
Yep.
and needless to say, Michael was not a very good father to him, even before he found that out. But basically, Michael's role in the whole show was to track down all of his original kids and kill them, basically.
Yeah. So then in like season 5, there's a few more characters that come along. So Enzo, Alaric.
Alaric came in before that.
No.
You sure about that?
No, he was in between, but he come in more toward...
Okay, yeah. So Alaric he started off as a teacher at the school. You later on found out he was like a vampire hunter.
Yeah.
And then he becomes kind of like a father figure for Elena.
Yeah.
In a nutshell again.
Yes, and Jeremy as well.
Yeah, so he's always been around, but he becomes definitely more of a major character.
Yeah, and also Enzo comes into it a bit more. So Enzo was Damon's best mate back in the day.
Also a vampire.
Yeah, so he comes back into the picture after they both get taken.
Yeah, so it's like these humans who are wanting to experiment on vampires. So they kidnap them both, they're locked up, and ultimately they work out a way to escape.
Yeah. But
something goes wrong and Damon isn't able to save Enzo, so he kind of leaves him behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he comes back into the picture a bit later on because he somehow gets out of it all.
Yeah. Another thing we didn't mention with the vampires, with this one, they have what they call a humanity switch.
Yes.
So, which plays a big role in a lot of... Pretty much any character who is a vampire in the show goes through this. So, basically, if they've been through an extremely traumatic event, the whole thing is that vampires, they feel emotions more strongly.
Yeah.
And they just can't deal with... They get very overwhelmed. So, basically, there's a little, switch in their brain that they can turn off. And basically, they become the worst kind of versions of themselves.
Which you don't really get to see much, but you get to see a lot in season 6.
Oh, it's throughout.
Yeah, but you get to see more of Stefan doing it.
Yeah, because you have Stefan goes through it, Damon goes through it, Elena goes through it because she's on and off a vampire. Caroline goes through it, which I really enjoyed. Towards the end of the seasons, like the last few seasons, you get a bunch of new characters again, so it's a bunch of what they call heretics.
Yeah.
So those are witches, but they're kind of, for lack of a better word, defective. So the only way they can use their magic powers is to siphon magic off others. So they are both vampire and witch, because generally with the whole laws of nature and everything, you cannot be a witch and a vampire. But because of that siphoning ability, they're able to become both.
Yeah.
So that's kind of another enemy Damon and Stefan and Elena in that face. But one of the heretics... Sorry, she's not a heretic. The main kind of leader of the heretics turns out to be Damon and Stefan's mum, who was a vampire, and they didn't know that she was still alive. They thought she had died back before they were even vampires themselves. And the mum she was not in a good headspace and was really upset with her kids, so she gave one of the other bad guys, who's Kai, who in my opinion is my favourite villain out of the whole thing. Kind of gave him the idea to put Elena to sleep, and just so Damon so she could punish Damon. So basically, the way it went was they put a spell on Elena so that she would remain asleep up until her best friend Bonnie died. For, I think it's season 7, and most of 8, she's not actually in the show.
Yeah, Elena's...
So because she's off somewhere, waiting to wake up. But yeah, we'll probably touch on Kai a bit more, because again, he is an awesome villain.
Yeah, so he's in another realm, wasn't it?
Yeah, so years back, this guy Kai, he was not a good guy. He was a part of a witch coven called the Gemini Coven.
Yeah. And
they have this tradition where, I don't know if it's actually a tradition or they were cursed, I can't specifically remember, but when, in the family, if there are a set of twins, when they turn 22, they have to do what's called the merge.
Yep. And
what that is, the stronger twin basically absorbs the other's powers and part of their personality. So Kai, he wanted all the power, so I don't know how to put this lightly, or in not a harsh way. The show was quite dark, so in a way. So Kai harmed all of his siblings except for his twin, and so that he could merge. But the family kind of tricked him, because instead of doing the merge, they sent him to what we know on the show as a prison world.
Yeah.
So he was sent to this other world where it was just him in it.
That's where Bonnie and
Damon end up,
yeah.
and that's how you kind of meet Kai.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he's been in this place alone because the world's kind of linked to him. He doesn't age, he can't die in that world, anything like that.
But he's a big trickster as well.
He's very manipulative. Yeah, so that's kind of the gist. Basically, towards the end, they figure it out. Elena gets woken up with only about a year past, maybe, I think it is, or a year and a bit. The last villain they face is, they portrayed him as literally the devil, I guess, so he was the leader of hell, supposedly.
Yeah.
But...
And they go to find a cure for vampirism as well.
It's like season 5 or
But then they
6.
come back and that...
Oh yeah, that comes back into play. That's right.
Yeah, because I think they gave it to Catherine.
Yeah, so basically there is a cure for vampirism, but there's only one. So the way that works is if you have it, that's great. But say, for example, well, this is what happened. A vampire sucks the blood out of that person who has taken the cure. They then have the cure in them. And the person who has then lost the cure, their age catches up with them, and then...
Bada bing, bada boom. No.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's basically what happened to Catherine, who, again, awesome villain. Props to Nina Dobrev on that one, who's the actress who plays her.
Yep.
She ended up going to hell, because she was, frankly, just not a nice person. And she finds a way to manipulate the guy who's in charge of hell, and tries to... Sorry, she doesn't try to. She ends up coming back.
Yeah.
And
all hell breaks loose, basically.
Yeah. No pun intended. Yeah, so that ends. She's back. And then Stefan and Damon are basically fighting over who's the one who's going to save the world from hell breaking loose. Ultimately, Stefan ends up with the cure, and... he ends up being the one who saves everyone. So unfortunately, he dies along with Catherine.
I cried so much. I cried all the way through.
I literally cried I reckon I would have cried watching every single episode, because I would come out of my room, tears in my eyes, and my mum would be like, Vampire Diaries? I'm like, yep. She'd know exactly what I was watching. Yeah. And later on, once the Vampire Diaries finished, it was the original, so it would make me cry as well.
I know,
all the
I'm
time.
like, I'm such
Probably more than the Vampire Diaries, actually. Controversial thing, but I probably prefer the originals more to the Vampire Diaries.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically that was Vampire Diaries in a nutshell.
In a very, very nutshell. We might break this into a part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So let's say this is part 1, and we'll get back to you with a part 2 following, talking about the originals.
Alright, see you guys.
Bye.